much, everybody who took part in that, Harinam. Performing the greatest sacrifice in Kali Yuga for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. Very nice. Part 2 now. Side B. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Naman Sankirtan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. I'm a bit exhausted now. I've done my Harinam and now this. I'm getting too old from this. My lungs are, my hands are cramp. Anyway, Hare Krishna, thank you very much to everybody for coming, and it's very nice to see you. And I'm very grateful to welcome our special guest as well, our friend, an old friend now, from London. Thank you for coming. And so I think I'm very pleased to see him, and it's always good to hear from him. So I think to welcome our guest, we should all put our hands into the air and very loudly chant 3 Haribols. Yes. Haribol! 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 So I'm going to get out of the way and hand you over to His Grace Navadvip Chandra Prabhu, and thank you very much for coming. It's nice to see you.
A fantastic Kirtan again to start the session. Thank you. It's a bit cold and miserable out there, but nice to come back into a warm atmosphere, warm, friendly atmosphere, right? This is the Friends Meeting House, isn't it? The Quakers? That's the tagline. So definitely. Sugary. So Hare Krishna, so we'll continue with our discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. How many of you were here when I last came to Rochester? I remember you, yes. I think you were there. Some of the rest of you? Yes? Okay. Good. Well, you came back for a second time, so I hope I won't disappoint you this time. And this book is, of course, it's a tremendous book, really, because it deals with topics which are of a very, very, you could say, esoteric, transcendental, otherworldly. Now, some people like they like some avenue for escape. When the world gets too difficult, when the world gets too troublesome, they like a route for escape. And so some people do it through different things. Music is an escape for some people. And we have some expert musicians here. In many ways, music is an escape, isn't it? Some people physically escape on holiday. They go to different places. Others escape in realms of philosophy. Right? You have the philosophers, you have the thinkers throughout the ages and all cultures. The Greeks, the Romans, everywhere. The philosophers around the world. Some turn to God to escape. But really, escaping can only get you so far, because reality is still there. And so we actually need something that allows us to be simultaneously aspiring for a better place, a better world, but which also gives us the ability and peace of mind to function while we're still here. Because that is reality. The world is going to be what it is the moment we step out of these doors. As soon as we come in with the warmth of the devotees, with the beautiful deities, the beautiful decoration, all that devotion that's gone into setting this up. And our 2 devotees here, and many others as well, who've kept the place going and kept the program going for years. It's a tremendous credit to them. But they create this little sanctuary for us here that allows us to step into literally a different world for this time. So hopefully we'll share some messages from the Gita. We'll share a few things that we can actually take with us back when we step outside again, back into the murky, cold, whatever it is. And we'll try and carry some of that with us. Did you do the Gita last session?
221.
When was your last Gita class here?
We're on 222 now.
222.
Yeah.
But did you do it last week, last Friday?
Yeah.
Okay. 223 to 24, I think you told me, right?
23 was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's okay.
It could be.
We can recap that.
I can't remember what I was doing yesterday.
23. It's 23.
23. Okay. Well, we'll start with a little pranam to invoke blessings. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki.
Jai.
So chapter 1 was called, what was chapter 1 called?
Observing the army.
Sorry?
Observing the army.
Observing the armies, yes, and it consists of questions by Arjuna to Krishna. And mostly, not so much questions, but reasons why he should not carry out his duty. And then in chapter 2, Krishna starts to respond. And he starts to respond by giving some essential scientific principles of our existence, with the intention that our path and our vision of the world will improve and change if we actually understand ourselves properly and thoroughly. So chapter 2 deals with the most fundamental of all topics, who we are, the soul. Now, the soul is a very interesting concept. The soul as a concept is found in many places, in different faiths, in different traditions. Sometimes people refer to their soul, the core of their being, what makes them tick. But we understand something in a very detailed, methodical way through chapter 2. And so hopefully you remember some of those verses. Maybe we can recap some of them. I think it's excellent you've got this little projector system here. Next time I'll bring a few slides. I was thinking if I could have prepared something like that. But from text 12 onwards, or text 11, Krishna starts to set the scene, and then text 12 he really gives the first dose. He says, "Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be." So immediately the concept of eternality is there. We have been there in the past, we will be there in the future. Now if we're thinking, clearly that doesn't apply to the body. We all know this body wasn't always there, and we know this body also will not be there in the future. So it's applying to something else. In text 13, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So then you have this concept of transmigration, that our essence, what we call ourselves, I, me, mine, that essence moves from body to body in much the same way that we move from place to place. Except obviously it's a little different in the sense that memory is not retained so thoroughly. But those experiences, they are there somewhere. And that's why whenever a baby is born, each new life that comes is completely unique and has a unique mind, unique characteristics, unique qualities, unique likes and dislikes, which sometimes manifest from a very early age. And two children, practically by age 5, have completely different outlooks on life and behaviors and patterns. So it's really continuing a process which started long, long ago. And that's why immediately when we open the pages of the Gita, and as we've just started to now receive that knowledge from chapter 2, you're forced to remove yourself from the current perspective of this room, this town, this country, my family, and move to a different viewpoint, like you just jump out and just look down on the entire scene, where you don't just see people and places, you see yourself moving through places, but through different bodies, with different experiences, through all sorts of species of life. So that theme is really developed in these last few verses. And so in 22, which was the verse you did last time, it's a very graphic description that's given here. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Now, do you sometimes shed a tear if you throw away an old pair of socks which has more holes than... Sometimes there's a reluctance, isn't there? This is my favourite, or maybe someone gave you those socks as a Christmas present or something. But generally we're quite happy to discard them, right? Old bits of clothing, anything that's worn out, anything that's broken, shoes, when the straps break, you don't keep them in your cupboard just as mementos, really. We might do sometimes if we particularly like them, but generally you discard them. And I can guarantee you've all discarded lots of clothes because you're certainly not wearing the ones now that you were born in, or that you started wearing as a baby, right? We've had so many different dresses and styles and functions, sports gear, loungewear, night dress, all those things. The point is that this goes on continuously, and you discard a garment and you take up a new garment. Therefore, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So this is why for us, actually, if we're armed with this knowledge of the movements of the soul in this world, we get a very strong and very, you could say, confidence-building perspective on how to handle changes of the body. For most people, when the inevitable end comes, it's a very traumatic, troubled time. And it will be difficult for us even. It'll be difficult physically, because typically the point at which people are ready to change their body is not the most pleasant occasion generally. There's normally something horrific going on, either health-wise or some emergency or tragedy. That's most of the occasions. The opportunities to just peacefully go away, they're relatively less. So the realistic outcome is that there is going to be difficulty and stress and pain at the time we have to leave this world. But that whole period can be made very much more manageable if we understand actually what's going on. And so just as here, you discard an old garment which is considered old and useless, and you take up a new garment which is now hopefully fits better and is more functional. So similarly, if we're armed with this philosophical knowledge and we're peaceful and steady, we will be happy to release the body which no longer functions for us. If you were to ask an old person, say, imagine you may know someone, say, aged 90 plus, and you ask them, which body would you like to have? The body you had when you were 18 years old or the body you have now? What would be the answer? Almost universally it would be, give me the young body. Because that's the body that's more functional, you can do things, there's the excitement of life ahead before you become cynical and all of that, and then just the depressing nature of the world sets in. So if you had a choice which body you would take, it would be a young, fresh, healthy body. But then, of course, other things develop with age, and you get some wisdom, hopefully, some maturity. Prabhuji's laughing. These days, that wisdom may not come so commonly. But we do like to think, and we do certainly have experience. And that's the funny thing in this world, that while you have the vitality of youth and health and strength and everything, you don't have much wisdom. And by the time you get the wisdom, and you think, I'm going to run my life in a perfect way, you don't have the mechanics to do it properly anymore. Things don't work properly, things creak a bit. And so, in this world, you never have everything. And there's always something that will cause you distress, and something that will cause you to wish for something better. And it's that aspiration of something better, a new type of fun, a new project, a new ambition that keeps us going. Keeps ambitious people going while they're young. You study for 20 years practically. Most people have to study for 20 years before they're able to function just in normal society. And different types of things people do it's intended to give them the life they want, right? Different careers, different lifestyle options. Maybe some don't study at all. That's the career they want. That's the life they want. Life of freedom. It's all the valid choices. There's no real right or wrong with any of it. But all these choices, these aspirations, these ambitions, they keep us going. But we have to understand that at the heart of it, there's something that is separate from our experience of all the pain, suffering, enjoyment, distress that takes place on that journey. And this is where we're getting to the fundamental nature of the soul. Because the soul is that eternal spark, that eternal item, for want of a better word, that is actually us. You know, sometimes we say, I have a soul. Actually, I would suggest contemplate it the other way around. Think in another way. I have a body. It's technically more accurate. Because the body is temporary and it's discarded. And it simply covers the soul while you're here in this particular life. But what you are is the soul. So that is the eternal principle, or the eternal reality. So in today's verse, we're going to just develop that theme a bit more. Do you normally recite the Sanskrit as well? Or? I suppose we can, you know. This is text 23. Nainam chindanti shastrani Nainam dahati pavakah Nachainam kledyantyaapo Nashoshayati marutah. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. So it's quite tough. It's quite tough. You may feel you're the weakest person. Just hearing this sentence alone should immediately give you a sense of confidence. No weapon can harm me. Can never be burned by fire, moistened by water, damaged by the wind. Let's read the next verse. 24. Achedoyam madayoyam Akledyo shosha evava Nitya sarvagadastanur Achaloyam sanatana. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So, fundamental principles. This is a bit like the physics part of the Gita. And as we'll read in the purport from Srila Prabhupada, there is a need for repeating these items again and again. This concept will be repeated throughout the Gita in different words, with different analogies and different methods, because it's of such fundamental importance. Our whole outlook on life changes completely when we just revisit who we think we are. No longer do I think I'm this person walking around with this color, with this language, with this culture, with this face, these words, this gender, male, female, whatever. No longer am I just that person. That is a temporary manifestation for me right now. There's something else which is quite different. From that perspective, can I look at what I do with myself in my life? If at the end of this life, another life is awaiting, would I make any changes to what I'm doing now? That becomes a useful question, right? In our life, we know we've made so many sacrifices for the sake of something that will be achieved later. So many sacrifices. You make sacrifices if you want a relationship to work. You make sacrifices if you want to succeed in your career. You make sacrifices if you want something and you don't have enough money for it. It means you sacrifice and save up till you get it. All our desires are fulfilled in this world, or we attempt to fulfill them, through the principle of sacrifice. And so the idea that we could now, if we adopt or if we explore this message from the Gita, the idea that we could possibly make some sacrifice of our time in this current life for the benefit of our future lives, that then becomes a very interesting concept. And that becomes the practical application of the verses of the Gita that we read. A book like this is fascinating to read, and if you're a philosopher, you'll be lost in there for days, weeks, months, and that's fine. But it's a bit more than philosophy also. It's about an understanding of reality and existence that allows you to operate going forward with a different and better foundation. So if we understand truly that we can never be harmed, we can never be damaged, we can never be hurt, the soul is unbreakable, insoluble, cannot be burned nor dried, unchangeable, immovable. That should hopefully give us a lot of confidence from word go. Hopefully that should give us a lot of confidence. Whoever there is in the world who causes us pain, if we're not actually situated on the level where we simply identify with this body, the mind, and our mental likes and dislikes, that person immediately cannot do anything to you. And if you also appreciate that they, just like us, are also a spirit soul, connected to the Lord, connected to God, then you also would not want to do anything to them that would cause them harm in some way. It becomes a very interesting two-way process, which can only really universally work when you actually have Krishna at the center. Because Krishna is that all-attractive person that everyone can approach. Everyone can relate to Krishna, because the name itself means all-attractive. And the sheer variety of species, persons, ideas, places in this world gives us a little idea of just how vast and capable the Supreme Lord is. And that's very reassuring, because it means there's nothing in this entire creation that he doesn't know about. And there's nothing in this entire creation that shouldn't be a cause of wonder for us. When you're a child, things are wonderful, right? There's an amazing experience around the corner. There's that childlike curiosity of wonder. What will happen next? And you have that wonder. We lose it a bit, as I said earlier, sometimes through when you get a bit cynical and old, and the same old drudgery goes on, and you say, okay. But there is a relishable experience to be found in every interaction. Every single interaction, every conversation you have with a person, every project you put in place, every you could say wish of the mind that you try to fulfill, there's a wonderful opportunity for some kind of personal growth there from the perspective of the soul. So these points are the basic points. If we start off from the basis of us being eternal, then we can ask further questions. What do I do next with this temporary body to help my eternal existence? So I think it would be good for us to just read a few sentences from this purport. And there is something about different philosophies spoken here. Srila Prabhupada has spoken in this book, a little further on the second paragraph. Go back to the previous verse, actually, 23. That's 24. Yeah, the Mayavadi. Who knows what a Mayavadi is? Impersonalist. Maya means illusion. Vadi means one who speaks. Right? So the Mayavadi engages in talks of illusion. It's a particular philosophy which actually pervades many aspects of people's thinking around the world, everywhere. It's this idea that ultimately everything is nothing. Or ultimately we are that everything. There are different varieties of this. Different varieties of philosophies exist. And this tries to put that into context. I think maybe it's nice to just read this paragraph. Would someone like to read the Mayavadi cannot explain?
The Mayavadi cannot explain how the individual soul came into existence simply by ignorance and consequently became covered by the illusory energy. Nor was it ever possible to cut the individual souls from the original Supreme Soul. Rather, the individual souls are eternally separated parts of the Supreme Soul. Because they are atomic individual souls eternally, Sanatan, they are prone to be covered by the illusory energy, and thus they become separated from the association of the Supreme Lord. Just as the sparks of a fire, although one in quality with the fire, are prone to be extinguished when out of the fire. In the Quran, the living entities are described as separated parts and parcels of the Supreme. They are eternally so. According to the Bhagavad Gita, also, so even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate identity. As is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Arjuna, Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never became one with Krishna.
So this is very important to understand. Some people have the analogy of a drop of water merges into the water and disappears. Right? It's a nice analogy, but it doesn't really prove anything. The definition of the soul as given by Krishna here says that the individual soul is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable. If he's unchangeable by nature, how could he disappear into nothingness, or merge into something else, or merge into some kind of sea of soul liquid? It doesn't. That's not. I mean, it's a concept that you can contemplate, but it's not the concept described in the Gita. And is very important, this item. So you'll hear the word Mayavadi coming up quite a bit, because that philosophy has its effect found throughout atheism also, agnosticism, or most faiths where people have a very detached view of a deep understanding of God and the person. Some people's spirituality is more to do with nature and maybe the waves and the light and the ether and things like that. Maybe some people's concept is that. And it's nice, but it misses the clear concept of us and the Lord. Ultimately, all of the creation cannot exist without the Lord, and indeed has come from the Lord. So that's the source that we are attempting to try to understand. And we can understand the Lord by appreciating the beauty of the creation around us, which includes everything that we find amazing. Concepts, people, the smell of the rose, the light of the sun, the fragrance of the earth. These are all items described later in the Gita, chapters 8, 9, 10, where we can go about our daily business and somehow detect the presence of the Lord. Rather than think, oh, this is a wonderful fragrance, and then leave it at that, we can think, this fragrance is a special creation of the Lord. A little bit of his special power is found in this fragrance, and that's why I find it attractive. that immediately allows us to connect with and think of the Lord. And in that way, everything wonderful in creation that we find actually serves to reunite us with our Lord again. So Krishna, to have that relationship established between us and the Lord, we need to understand clearly the difference between us and the Lord. If you're thinking that you will merge into God, you can't have a relationship. If you're a homogeneous mass or a homogeneous lump, what will you be having a relationship with? The relationship is with two entities, right? You need two separate things to have a relationship. So it's key. It's a key aspect of philosophical growth. For us to actually be able to engage in a process of learning about the Lord and learning to love Him and learning to serve Him, you have to first of all understand very clearly that we can never be God. And it may seem obvious, Gita makes it explicitly clear, but in many, many different paths and understandings that is not clear at all. It's a big mess, a mix. If you worship, if you do this, you'll become God. It's very popular. After all, who wouldn't like to hear that there'll be God? So this philosophy is rampant. It's rampant in India, but it's not grounded in Shastra. The idea that you will become God is never found anywhere in legitimate Shastra. But people like it. So there's so many different ways it's described. Different religions have this concept also. You will at one point become either nothing, as the Buddhist nirvana is like that, or the void aspect, or you will become the sum total of all of existence. If you're looking to have a relationship and an exchange of love with a person, you can't merge into that person. It's the differences that give you some fun, isn't it? Now sometimes the differences also cause you pain. They also give you the other side. They also cause you trouble because they drive you mad. But if you don't have another person, you can't possibly have an exchange. Now these days with the how could you say, the widespread availability of endless gadgets, your iPhone 25 or whatever it is, it'll soon be up to that number. This latest thing you pull out of your pocket, some headset, something wired into your brain probably, not too far away. You have all of those items that you can legitimately have fun with. And some people do actually, they spend hours on hours a day. So the whole concept of addiction is becoming a problem now, digital addiction. And there are now institutes and clinics being set up to wean people off that. Now, in one sense, it's not directly the gadget that you're interacting with, you're typically having conversations with other people through those gadgets, right? So in that sense, the analogy is not so strong. But still, people do get attached to different items. They get attached to their phones, they get attached to this. But you know that however nice and shiny this phone is and however many features it is and whatever latest processor is inside, you can't have the same level of fun with that as you can have with another human being. You know that's the case. Our fondest moments in life have always been fond experiences with others. And conversely, the most painful ones have also been that. So it comes in a double-edged sword. The question is, the philosophies of oneness, voidism, what they do is, they basically say, look, there is so much pain and suffering in this world. I want a situation where there is no more relationship. Because that will solve all my problems. All my problems come from relationships. Therefore, I've had enough of it. I very much like the idea of becoming God, becoming one with God, or there being no God, or just floating around like an atheist forever in space, or in some transcendence. You can do that. There are different types of liberation, 3 types of liberation that are described in the Gita, and more details. But one of them does involve, you could say, impersonal liberation, where the soul can basically spend, I mean, the concept of time doesn't really work in that realm, but spend a long time, you could say, floating within the rays of the Supreme Lord and having a feeling of oneness. But you know what happens? It's explained like that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that eventually what happens is that person gets bored. And the very thing that gives them sustenance and nourishment, which is an exchange, a relationship, an experience, when that's not there for a length of time, they simply have to get it again. So from their liberated platform, where they are literally above and outside of this world, in the realm of matter and the senses, they have to come back again, just in order to get that experience again. So of the different philosophies, the philosophy that gives us a direct understanding of the supreme relationship, that can be considered to be the best philosophy. That philosophy that doesn't teach you to deny relationships and doesn't engage you in furthering relationships which are simply temporary and will inevitably cause you pain, but rather gives you access to a relationship which can be eternal and thoroughly enjoyable. That is something well worth aspiring for. And as the Gita goes on to explain, and Krishna will give so many verses, Manmana bhavamat bhakto sarva dharman parityaja, I will take care of all your problems, Krishna says. Just develop your relationship with me. Whichever life you're in, whichever birth you're in, whichever body you're in, whichever planet you're on, if your relationship with me is established, you will be able to coast through any and all difficulties. And you will be able to relish the exchange that can only actually happen in its fullest extent between us, the spirit soul, and God. We get a little taste of it with each of us. We have a little exchange of pleasure with another person. We know it has limitations. And in its fullest sense, it is only possible with the Supreme Lord. That's the full manifestation of the full ecstatic relationship. And that's what we're deeply looking for. That's what we're deeply searching through all our experiences, all our travels, all our philosophies, all our efforts, our hard work, all our attempts to earn tons of money. You know, it's a common thing, right? People would just like lots and lots of money because then they'll be happy. That's the real point. You want to be happy. Just having lots of zeros in your bank account doesn't add, okay, let's add, you've got 1 million, let's add a few more zeros to it. What does it actually do for you? It only does something in the sense that you think, this will bring me some happiness. And so what if we could actually understand the nature of happiness itself from a really deep level? To do that, we have to understand happiness in connection with the soul and not the body. When happiness is considered in connection with the soul, well, if you're dealing with the soul, matter cannot make the soul happy. Because matter is temporary, it's feeble, it's weak, it breaks. The soul is eternal, it cannot be withered by the wind, is immutable, doesn't change, all these things we read. So then the soul, if it wants real happiness, is looking for a relationship with what? With another soul. Right? With another soul, and at its utmost development, with the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Soul. Now, interestingly, this idea of seeking relationship between spirit and spirit, that's what we're getting to. For us trying to be happy, finding happiness in the sources of this world through matter is a troublesome task. I don't know if anyone's ever made it work fully. Have any of you ever been fully happy in the world of matter? I suspect not. Moments of happiness, yes, granted, we've all had those. We've had moments of great pleasure. Then it stops the next day, right? Or something changes. It cannot last. Simply because the soul is embodied in this body, for some period of time, we can have an exchange with matter and derive some some sense of pleasure from it. But ultimately that spirit soul is never going to be happy in the realm of matter. It needs another soul. It needs many souls actually. And that's the beauty of the spiritual world, the beauty of the ultimate destination where we learn about, that we learn about as a viable destination in the Gita. The place where all the different souls, all the different living entities are with the Supreme Lord and engaged in a whole range of activities only for the sake of those activities, for the exchange of pleasure and love. They're not doing those activities because they have to pay the bills. They're not doing those activities because they have to save themselves from some calamity that's about to happen. They do those activities only for the sake of having fun. Because that is actually the inherent nature of us. We inherently like to be happy. You don't need to teach someone that they need to be happy. It's just part of it. It's just part from the moment you're born. Trying to be happy is something we do. From the moment we want the mother's milk, the moment we want some nice tasty item, we're looking for happiness. It doesn't need to be taught to us. Rather what we do is we end up teaching ourselves all sorts of other techniques and systems that will hopefully deliver us happiness. We all know intuitively happiness is what we want. Consciousness with Krishna at the center, with the whole spiritual realm, which is not just a monotonous relationship between one person and some robot. It's not like that. It's a full relationship of feelings, emotions, expressions. Fun. Ultimately, fun. And that's what we are looking for. So it is very important that the Gita brings us ultimately to this point of developing our relationship with Krishna by learning more and more about him. We want relationship with someone, you have to know something about the person, right? How long does it take for two couple to form a relationship properly? It takes some time, no? You have to get to know the person, you have to get to know their likes and dislikes. And there's a very important element in a relationship. It's service. The principle of service is there. That love is there as a concept, but how is love expressed? Through service. You serve the other person in some way. You try to do something to please the person. You make them something they like. You say something they like, or whatever, you know. Service is the basis upon which love is expressed. So if we're happy with the ideas we've developed so far, that there's us as the spirit soul is only going to be happy with a relationship with the Supreme Lord, where we can actually love the Lord, well, there's one final component required with that. For us to do that and to actually express that love. Because you can say, I love God, but what does it mean? What does it actually mean? Do you actually know who God is? Do you know what he likes, what he doesn't like? Do you know what he would like from you? Is God a he, or is he a she, or how does it all work? You have to know something about God. So the Gita and scripture in general gives us information about God which we'll never find out through scientific research or our mental speculation or having a chat with a bloke down the pub. You're not going to suddenly discover God by doing that. You might have some interesting discussions for sure, but you're probably not going to come to the conclusion, because the conclusion is beyond our mind, senses, and anything that our brain can conceive. It's way beyond all of that. The only way we can get it is by information which is given to us by the Lord himself in the form of these scriptures. That's why the scripture is such a key thing. It gives you information which you could never acquire by your own efforts, by experimentation or by... After all, would you ever imagine, we've been learning about Krishna. Krishna is this little beautiful person, looks like that, has a flute, has a charming yellow garment, and he's wearing pink today, it's fine, and beautifully decorated, captivates the eyes and hearts of everyone. You didn't wake up one morning and just thought that, did you? There's some factors there. It is said in the Christian teachings, God made man in his own image. It's true. There's a reason why we are how we are as the you could say, the topmost species on this planet, right? Humans have the most developed combination of senses, intelligence, mind. We hope that's the case. I mean, these days you have to wonder. We have to wonder what's going on with intelligence levels. The strangest things are accepted as factual or truthful, and what is truthful now is practically disappearing altogether. To understand Krishna, which is not a concept that can come from our imagination, we get knowledge from him directly. That's why this Gita is of such value. And that's why we try and get everyone to read the Gita as much as possible. Because there, you will delve into the concepts of God, concepts of us, concepts of this world. And we'll understand who we're trying to love. We'll try to understand how we can love him through the principle of service. And we'll find when we're actually engaged in serving the Lord, that service won't be one way. It's always two ways. When we show a little desire to serve the Lord starts interacting with us in a way that's very tangible and something that you can experience in your life. And that's the proof of the pudding, really. Because the theory is there, and you could think that service is a one-way thing. You know, it's not like slavery, right? The person just slaves away, and nothing at the end of it, just pain and trouble. No, here, as you progress in the relationship with the Lord, you discover more about him, you think about him, you do service for him, actual service. And this is why the deity aspect of the Lord is so important. Because it gives us a way, with our material body, to serve the Lord who is not material. What chance do you have to serve the Lord with a material body? Otherwise, the Lord is pure spirit, nothing to do with his body. How can you serve him? Where is he? So therefore, as part of Krishna's help for us, he arranges a system of archa vigraha, which is very scientifically described in the scriptures, by which he agrees that if we carve a form of the Lord from different techniques are given, how that can be done, and the features of the Lord, and then the advanced devotee requests the Lord to accept our worship through that form. And then when we do so, we will have an exchange with the Lord that's a very practical, touchable experience. And that in the temples, we will worship the deities as persons. We give them items to eat. We give them breakfast, lunch, dinner. We treat them as persons. We dress them. We bathe them. Now, people who don't know the science of deity worship and don't understand how the Lord has actually instituted it himself as a means for us who are in this world, stuck in this world, but desiring to come to him. He's done that for us. Why can he not accept that? The analogy is given of a letter, right? If you want the letter to go from A to B, you don't just take your letter and stick it in the nearest receptacle you can find, right? You're walking down the street, stick it, a nice green thing with an opening there, chuck it in there. It's a dustbin, right? It's not going to get there. But if you find a post box and you put your letter in there, there's a chance, hopefully if Royal Mail is behaving itself, that it will get to its destination. So the deity is considered a bit like a post box in one sense, because it's an authorized representation of the Lord, yes, made of material elements, but can manifest the potency of the Lord by the Lord's strength. If God really is God, who are we to say that he cannot manifest his strength through a form within this world? Why are we limiting God and saying he's incapable of doing that? He's more than capable. He created everything in this world. He can manifest through sound, he can manifest through light, he can manifest through a form, he can manifest through philosophy, and in fact he does all of those things. So it's actually very easy to contact the Lord, even while we're here in an embodied state, if you simply know what you're looking for. Through all of these things I mentioned, through philosophy, through discussion, through through physical elements, you can contact the Lord. And it all starts really with these fundamental basics here. So, I mean, Prabhuji's gone, but I guess you're going through verse by verse. That's going to take you 700 sessions by the time you complete that. So you've got quite a few sessions to go, at the rate of 50 a year. You've got 10 years before you get through the Gita. And we did a couple of verses, maybe a bit quicker. So that's what you've signed up to, okay?
We got the backwards up as well.
And then the Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses. A little more to study. You might have to accelerate it at some point, I think. And that's why actually your reading, your personal reading, will also be important. And just sit down with the Gita. Just sit down with the Gita before you go to sleep. Just pick up the Gita and just read it for 10 minutes. It's very simple. Krishna manifests through that and through the purports, which are the explanations of our teacher, Srila Prabhupada, we actually get to understand what this ancient Sanskrit means. What the messages of Krishna mean to us. And that way you can actually have a very blissful, very happy life where day by day your connection with the Lord grows, mistakenly said, grows, and it will glow eventually also. It increases and you feel that reciprocation. You're not here in this world alone. The Lord is with you. He's with you in your heart. He's with you outside. He retains the full personality that can also exchange love with you, if you want. And that is something that gives you solace throughout your entire life. And God knows we need solace right now. The world is mad. If you contemplate what's going on in the world, you're contemplating your future, you're contemplating the future of generations, younger generations, older generations. We see the systems around us are kind of failing, the basis upon which peace is maintained. Financial systems are all just always a little tweak away from completely collapsing. They are, if you study the basis upon which our entire society runs, it is just a little fraction away from complete collapse at any point in time. It's just patched over, papered over, and kept going. That's not eternal. And therefore our lifestyle should also have something more in it than a complete dependence on all these temporary things which, just with a little agitation of some kind, can fail. They fail throughout the world in different countries. It shouldn't be a shock. This country itself has had multiple shocks, economic shocks and, societal upheaval over the history. Just look at the history of it. Every country around the world has had it. Don't think it won't happen to us. This is something that happens to someone else. It will. These are natural cycles that go through life. Generations go through different cycles. Throughout all of that drama that goes on, if you have a very, very solid connection with Krishna, you will be able to go through each of those upheavals, pleasurable moments, distressful moments, and distressing moments, and you will actually be satisfied and peaceful throughout all of it. Not from just a point of blinding yourself to the truth, but from a point of deep personal experience. And that's really one of the ways that we can tell if we're making progress in spiritual life. Are we at ease with ourselves, with the world, with what's happening in the world? And are we at all times conscious of the Supreme Person to whom we're intimately connected? So that's what we try to do. I always have a great time when I come here to Rochester, see all the devotees. And it's so wonderful how you've kept going this program for so long. Please keep it up. You can see it as a weekly dose of nourishment for the soul. Dose of nourishment. And that will sustain us. Well, let's see if there's any questions, any comments, anything you want to raise.
I have one question actually. That one little line in one of the verses, I think it was in 24, where it says that the soul is present everywhere. Does not that make you suspect that it's that sort of impersonalistic state?
Yes.
That it's present everywhere?
It's just
Or is that just related to the body? It's present
well,
everywhere?
it's just the use of language for that particular sentence. And Prabhupada in the purport explains that present everywhere means there are souls present everywhere. The soul is being used there as a kind of like a singular. If we said, for example, the tree is present everywhere, the tree is found on earth, you can find language usage like that, where it's not that it's in one place, there's trees everywhere. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains that souls are found everywhere, even on the sun, he says. Because don't forget, the sun is a fiery body, right? Fiery, hot. We don't stand a chance going close to the sun. I mean, if you just try and look at the sun, don't do that. Don't try this at home. You'd probably be blinded if you did that for any more than a few seconds. But there can be suitable bodies for the living entities, the soul, which are composed of a fiery nature. So, yes, it's all pervading means the souls are found everywhere throughout the entirety of the creation. So I'd say it probably could be rewritten, maybe more clarity. But you know, these are the esoteric terminologies of translation. What else? Do you all have a copy of the Gita? Yeah? Okay, excellent. If anyone doesn't, please make sure you get one, because this is like a guidebook for life. The manual of life. What else? I promise you wanted to make some announcements or something. Did you do that already or no? No? Oh, okay, fine.
What about Arati? Arati?
Arati next.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Nami Krishna Hare Namaste Narasimhaya. Hiranyakashipu Vaksha.
So a couple of announcements. Tomorrow we have a program at the Hindu temple in Gravesend, 3 o'clock I believe, yes. We're discussing the Sri Upanishad, I believe. So you're welcome to come to that. It will be Prashad, I think. It's Kadashi tomorrow, so fruit. Anyway, that's at the Hindu temple in Gravesend. We do a program there once every month. And also last Saturday of the month, is it? And on Sunday at Radhanath's farm, we have a celebration of the Ram appearance today. That'll be, what time does that start? 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock we'll have a festival there, so I can, if many of you will attend as possible. Is that it for now? So it's a busy weekend, actually, for us. So we hope you can get to some of that anyway. So thank you very, very much as you came. Thank you again to Navadvip Chandra for coming. We're very, very grateful. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for coming. So, Prasad time, I think. Yeah? Okay. Mahaprasadi Govinde. Mahaprasadi Govinde. Brahmani Vaishnavi. Brahmani Vaishnavi. Punyatam Rajan. Vishwasunai Vijayate. Sarirana Vijaya. Indriyata Taika. Indriyata Vishaya Shakare. Admati Vayati. Logma Sudamti. Yakta Katina Samsare. Krishna Bodhadoy Moy. Ragana Jiva Joy. Samsadane Lomai. Samadhi Radha Krishna Gunagan. Ramana Shri Chaitanya Nitai. Jainamai Jainitai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhara. Shri Asadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sadhu Ki Jai. Thank you very much. I think they're waiting over to service. Supper. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
His Grace Navadvip Chandra Das Ki.
Jai.
Actually, maybe I could just introduce the two devotees. Where are they? Yeah,
Yes.
they very kindly brought me here today.
Oh, you're the tax.
From the manor. Himanshu Prabhu and his wife.
Hare Krishna.
So, please.
Thank you very much for your service. And coming down as well. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
For giving us the opportunity to serve.